I'm standing in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. It is October 14th and the temperature is 41 degrees Fahrenheit. There is frost on the grass, and right in front of me, half buried in this frozen Pennsylvania soil, is a fence post, an oak fence post. I know for a fact, from the farm records I have been carrying around in my coat pocket for 3 weeks now, that this post was set into the ground in 1887, 137 years ago. I'm pressing my thumbnail into it right now, as hard as I can. It is solid. It does not give. No rot, no mushiness, no soft spots. This wood is harder than the wood I bought from the lumberyard 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I would have called someone a liar for telling me that was possible. I want to tell you something I am not proud of. I have been working with wood, maintaining fences, protecting timber on my property for 31 years. 31 years. And in those 31 years, I spent, and I want you to hear this number, I spent somewhere close to $18,400 on wood preservatives, sealers, stains, pressure-treated lumber replacements, contractor fees, and products that all promised me the same thing. They promised me they would make the wood last. They did not make the wood last. Every 8 to 12 years, sometimes faster, I watched the same thing happen. The gray comes first, then the checking, those small surface cracks running along the grain, then the soft spots near the ground line, then one post leans, then two. Then I'm on the phone with a contractor, getting a quote that makes me feel physically ill. I thought that was just how wood worked. It is not how wood works. There's a formula. 3 ingredients, less than $22 per full fence application. And the wood treatment industry buried it starting in the 1940s. I found the proof, not in a laboratory, not in a university research paper, though the science backs it up completely. I found it in the margin notes of a Mennonite agricultural logbook from 1923, held at the Lancaster Mennonite Historical Society. Handwritten in pencil. 4 words in the margin next to a fence maintenance entry that read, and I will read this to you directly: oil, tar, spirits, holds. That is all it said. 4 words. But those 4 words sent me down a 6-month research path that changed everything I thought I understood about wood, chemistry, and why the products on the shelves of every hardware store in America seem to fail right on schedule. Stay with me, because this goes much deeper than a fence post. Let us go back, not to the 1920s, not to colonial America. Let us go back 2,500 years to the pine forests of what is now southern Sweden. The Scandinavians who lived there, the same genetic ancestors of the Vikings, had a problem. They were building ships, long, flat-bottomed boats that needed to survive not just rain, not just damp soil, but continuous immersion in the North Atlantic, salt water, 24 hours a day, for months at a time. And those ships lasted, not 5 years, not 10 years. Archaeologists recovering Viking longships from Swedish lake beds in the 1960s found wood that, after 1,200 years of submersion, still retained its structural integrity at the core. They found this at Roskilde Fjord in Denmark in 1962. 5 longships all recovered, all still showing coherent cellular structure in the timber. How? Pine tar, produced by the slow destructive distillation of Scots pine root wood. The Vikings were coating every inch of exposed timber with a dark, viscous resin they cooked from the roots of the very trees they were cutting down. Now move forward to the Roman Empire. Pliny the Elder documented pine tar production in his Naturalis Historia, written around 77 CE. He described the naval dockyards at Brundisium, modern Brindisi, Italy, where every warship hull was treated with a mixture of pine resin, linseed oil pressed from flaxseed, and a volatile spirit derived from pine resin to drive the penetration deep into the grain. These were not folk remedies. These were engineering specifications. Pliny noted the mixture in careful detail because it was the standard, not a regional custom. The standard. Move forward again. Medieval England, 1350s. The Black Prince's warships at the Battle of Winchelsea. The shipwright records from the Portsmouth dockyards, held in the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, show routine application of what they called a Stockholm tar dressing, named after the Swedish port that exported pine tar across all of northern Europe, mixed always with boiled linseed oil and genuine spirits of turpentine. Move forward to colonial America. The Amish and Mennonite farmers who settled Lancaster County in the early 1700s brought this knowledge with them directly from Switzerland and the Rhine Valley. They did not use it on ships. They used it on fence posts, barn siding, and wagon wheel spokes. And those fence posts, I'm touching one right now in this frozen October field, are still standing. This was not folk medicine. This was the engineering standard of every civilization that needed wood to last. Now let me tell you why it works, because this is not mysticism, this is chemistry. And when you understand chemistry, you will understand why what you're buying at the hardware store today is a fundamentally different substance pretending to be the same thing. A tree, while it is alive, produces resin. In pine trees, this resin is called oleoresin. It is a mixture of rosin acids and volatile terpene compounds. It is the tree's immune system. When a bark beetle bores into a pine tree, the tree floods the wound with oleoresin, which crystallizes around the larvae and smothers them. When a fungal spore lands on a wound in the bark, the oleoresin creates a chemical environment, high in terpenic acids, that is toxic to fungal cell walls. This is not a metaphor. This is a direct antifungal, antibacterial, and insecticidal mechanism operating at the cellular level. When a tree is cut and milled into lumber, that immune system goes dormant. The volatile terpenes evaporate over time. The rosin crystallizes and retreats. The wood is now, chemically speaking, defenseless. What the 3-ingredient formula does, and Penn State Extension researchers confirmed this in a 2017 study on traditional wood preservative penetration rates, is reintroduce those defense compounds directly into the cellular structure of the wood, not coat the surface, not create a film barrier, penetrate down to the cellular level. The first ingredient is boiled linseed oil, not raw linseed oil, boiled. The boiling process polymerizes the oil, which means the molecular chains link together and become capable of cross-linking with the cellulose fibers inside the wood. Polyurethane, the product on virtually every hardware store shelf labeled as a wood sealer, penetrates to a depth of approximately 1/4 of a millimeter. Boiled linseed oil, confirmed in the Penn State study, penetrates to a depth of 1 full millimeter or more into dry, open-grained timber, 4 times deeper into the actual wood fiber where the rot begins. The second ingredient is real turpentine. And I need you to pay attention here because this is where the substitution happened. Real turpentine, spirits of turpentine, is distilled from pine resin. It contains alpha-pinene and beta-pinene, which are the same volatile terpene compounds in the tree's original oleoresin immune system. Its job in this formula is as a carrier. It is small enough, molecularly, to drive the linseed oil and the pine tar deep into the wood grain before it evaporates, leaving the other 2 compounds behind inside the fiber. It is the delivery mechanism. The third ingredient is pine tar, real pine tar, slow distilled from pine heartwood root, not synthetic coal tar derivatives. Pine tar reintroduces rosin acids directly into the wood. Those rosin acids, abietic acid, pumeric acid, neoabietic acid, are chemically hostile to the fungi, beetles, and bacteria that cause wood rot at the ground line. This is not a barrier. It is a biological deterrent embedded inside the wood, mixed together in a ratio of 2 parts, linseed oil to 1 part pine tar to 1/4 part turpentine. These 3 ingredients create a penetrating, protective, biologically active treatment that mimics what the tree was doing for itself while it was alive. Now, here is the part they do not want you to think about too hard. World War II ended in 1945. The American petrochemical industry, which had scaled up massively to produce synthetic fuels, synthetic rubber, and synthetic solvents for the war effort, suddenly had enormous production capacity and no military contracts. That industry needed peacetime markets, fast, and it found them. Between 1946 and 1955, the product sold in hardware stores across America labeled turpentine was quietly reformulated. What you buy today labeled as paint thinner or mineral spirits or even turpentine substitute is a petroleum distillate. It contains no alpha-pinene, no beta-pinene, no terpenic compounds whatsoever. It is a solvent that can thin oil-based paints. It cannot drive biological preservatives into wood fiber. It does not have the chemistry for it. What you buy today labeled as wood sealer or deck stain or exterior finish is a polymer film former. It sits on the surface, it flexes, it cracks, it peels, and within 2 to 3 years, it begins to fail at every microcrack because water gets under the film and cannot escape. The rot begins underneath a surface that looks fine from 10 feet away. The wood treatment industry in the United States generates approximately $15.2 billion per year in retail sales. Every 2 to 3 years, on a remarkably predictable cycle, the products fail. You buy more products, the cycle continues. Natural pine tar cannot be patented. Boiled linseed oil cannot be patented. Real spirits of turpentine from pine resin cannot be patented. What cannot be patented cannot generate licensing revenue. What cannot generate licensing revenue cannot be advertised at national scale. What is not advertised at national scale disappears from public knowledge 1 generation at a time. That is not a conspiracy. That is just a market that rewards complexity and punishes simplicity. I applied this formula to every fence post on my property in late April of this year. I want to give you the exact numbers because I think the exact numbers matter. 1 quart of boiled linseed oil from Sunnyside Corporation, $8.47 at my local hardware store. 1 pint of real Stockholm pine tar from Austin AB, a Swedish company that has been making it since 1733. $9.99 on their website, shipped. 1 small bottle of genuine spirits of turpentine, not mineral spirits, the real botanical product, from Clapham's $6.50, total $24.96 for enough treatment to cover 60 linear feet of fence post and rail. I mixed them in a $2 mason jar. 2 parts linseed oil, 1 part pine tar, a splash of turpentine, no measuring required. The Mennonite logbook said to thin, and that is exactly right. The mixture is the color of dark honey. It smells extraordinary. It smells like a pine forest and a linseed field at the same time. No sanding, no power washing. I used a 2-inch natural bristle brush for the posts and an old cotton t-shirt cut into rags for the rails. I painted it on warm and thin. I want you to picture this. A gray, weathered, checked post that has been standing for 12 years. The moment the mixture touches it, within 30 seconds, I watched the wood change color. It deepened from gray to amber to a rich, warm brown. You could see the liquid moving into the grain, not sitting on top, moving into it. The grain lines darkened as the oil penetrated each individual fiber, and the pine tar filled the spaces between them. It took me one Saturday afternoon, 6 hours, 60 feet of fence, $24.96. I came inside smelling like a Swedish shipyard and feeling more satisfied than I have felt doing property maintenance in 30 years. The contractor, who came out in March to quote me on fence replacement and treatment, told me the total job would be $1,240. I did it for $24.96. That is a 45 to 1 markup. For a product that, by the chemistry I just described to you, will perform worse. I will not skip over this because it is not optional. Boiled linseed, oil-soaked rags are a serious fire hazard. I need you to understand the mechanism because this is not a vague caution label. As boiled linseed oil oxidizes, as it cures, it generates heat. In a folded or bunched rag, that heat has nowhere to go. The temperature rises, the oil reaches its flash point, the rag ignites, spontaneously, without any external flame. In September of 1991, a spontaneous combustion fire in a furniture refinishing workshop in Minneapolis destroyed the building and killed 2 workers. The cause was confirmed as improperly disposed boiled linseed oil rags left in a pile near a wall. This is not a theoretical risk. When you are done applying this formula, do not put your rags in a pile. Do not put them in a trash can. Lay them flat in single layer on a concrete surface outdoors, a driveway, a patio, and allow them to fully dry before disposal. Or submerge them completely in water in a metal container before sealing it. Flat, single layer, or fully submerged. Those are your 2 options. Everything else is a fire waiting to happen. Now, I told you I found this in the margin notes of a Mennonite agricultural logbook. What I did not tell you is that it took me 6 weeks of reading those records, cross-referencing the Lancaster Mennonite Historical Society archives with the Ephrata Cloister maintenance logs from the 1740s, to find the second entry. The one written not in the margin, but in a separate ledger, dated February 1931, by a farm manager named Ezra Baylor. It read, in full, posts treated in October. Beeswax coat applied in November before first frost. Holds the oil in, sun does not pull it. Beeswax. That is the part that almost every modern reconstruction of this formula leaves out, and it is the part that explains why these posts are still standing in 2024. Raw beeswax, gently heated until liquid, brushed over the fully cured linseed oil treatment as a final coat. Beeswax is approximately 90% esters and fatty acids that are natively resistant to ultraviolet radiation. What destroys penetrating oil treatments on fence posts is not water, it is UV degradation. Prolonged sun exposure breaks down the polymerized linseed oil at the molecular level, which causes it to oxidize faster than it should and begin to pull away from the wood fiber. Beeswax creates a UV barrier on the surface, not a film barrier that traps moisture, but a translucent, breathable wax coat that absorbs UV energy before it reaches the oil beneath. The wood can still breathe, moisture can still move in and out, but the preservative compounds stay locked in the fiber where they belong. 1 pound of raw beeswax, $7, applied warm with an old cotton sock. That is it. That is the step that turns a 5-year application into a 15-year application, possibly longer. I will not know for 15 years. But I know what is standing in that field in Lancaster County, and I know what Ezra Baylor wrote in February of 1931, and I know the chemistry is sound. I spent 31 years doing it wrong. 31 years and $18,400 solving a problem that was never actually a problem. It was a system. A system designed to make a simple thing seem complicated and to replace a cheap, permanent solution with an expensive temporary one on a reliable cycle so that the revenue kept flowing. I spent 31 years watching wood rot because I trusted the label on a product at a hardware store over the margin notes of a Mennonite farmer who learned it from his grandfather, who learned it from the people who built their community in the 1720s, on a knowledge that goes back to Pliny the Elder and the boat builders of southern Sweden. That is not a wood maintenance story. That is 31 years of a system operating exactly the way it was designed to operate. You and I now share something that $15.2 billion a year depends on us not knowing. Here's what I want you to do right now. Just one thing. Look around your property and find the oldest piece of untreated exterior wood you own, a fence post, a deck board, a barn siding plank, and tell me in the comments the year it was installed. Not what condition it is in, not what you have done to it, just the year. I want to know what we are actually dealing with out there. If you want the full mixing ratios, the exact sourcing list for Stockholm pine tar, and the complete step-by-step on the beeswax application, I have put everything in the description. A complete written guide. No sign-up required, no email list, just the information. And if you know someone, a neighbor, a family member, anyone who just got a fence replacement quote that made them feel sick, please send them this video. Not to share my channel. I do not care about that. Send it because that for now $100 quote is not inevitable, and they deserve to know that before they sign anything. Next week, I'm going to show you what happened when I applied this same research method to roof shingles. There is a tar compound that Norwegian farmers were painting on wood shingle roofs in the 1600s that outlasted every modern asphalt shingle by 4 to 5 decades. The roofing industry buried it for almost identical reasons to everything I described today. The chemistry is different. The story is the same. Stay close.